You have gathered here not merely to hear words, but to encounter yourself in a deeper mirror. There are moments in life when you sense that your path does not follow the common road, when your soul seems to breathe in a rhythm unfamiliar to those around you, and you ask in silence, am I different? Am I rare? It is in this question that the archetype of the seeker awakens, for rarity is not about superiority, but about destiny. When I speak of a rare personality, I do not mean a peculiarity of manner, nor a performance of eccentricities. I speak of something elemental, something born of the unconscious, of the patterns woven into the fabric of your being long before you were able to shape yourself with conscious will. In every age, there are souls who stand as outliers to the collective, not in defiance, but by necessity. They carry images, intuitions, burdens, and gifts that cannot easily be assimilated by the mass psyche. They live with a strange tension. On one side, the demand of society to conform. On the other, the pull of the inner world, insisting on expression. Such a person is often misunderstood, sometimes feared, occasionally revered, but almost always lonely in the ordinary sense. The loneliness is not merely social isolation, but the existential solitude of the one who cannot betray the voice within. The first sign that you inhabit such a rare form of existence is that you sense meaning where others see only surface. Imagine a simple encounter. A bird crosses the sky, a shadow lengthens across a path, a child laughs in the distance. For most, these pass by unnoticed, but in you they vibrate like strings touched by an unseen hand. The world is not mute. It speaks through symbols, and you cannot help but hear. This orientation toward the symbolic is not a trick of imagination, but a genuine sensitivity to the unconscious, for the unconscious reveals itself, not through literal statements, but through images, synchronicities, and moods. You feel this, and it isolates you, because those who live only in the literal cannot comprehend why you stand transfixed at the play of light, or why a dream haunts you more deeply than yesterday's news. This attunement to symbols brings you close to the realm of archetypes. These primordial forms of psychic energy shape your destiny more than any deliberate choice. You may feel the archetype of the wanderer calling you to leave places where others find comfort. You may feel the archetype of the healer demanding that you confront wounds in yourself and others. You may sense the shadow pressing against the door of consciousness, reminding you that what you deny will rule you in secret. The rare personality is rarely free of archetypal possession. Rather, it must learn to relate to the archetypes with awareness, to dance with the gods instead of being devoured by them. And so we arrive at another sign of rarity, an intimate relationship with darkness. Ordinary people resist the darkness of the psyche. They distract themselves, cling to light, or project their shadows onto others. But you, if you are truly among the rare, cannot escape it. You encounter the dark not as an enemy, but as a teacher. Dreams confront you with images of death, betrayal, dismemberment, and you know instinctively that these are not omens of outer calamity, but messages of inner transformation. You begin to see that without descent, there is no ascent. Without shadow, there is no light. The alchemists called it the nigredo, the blackening, the necessary stage before the gold can be born. You have lived through these inner deaths, and in them you have tasted the rare dignity of being reshaped by forces beyond your ego. The rare personality often carries a deep wound. This wound is not an accident. Buddha portal, it may come from childhood neglect, from betrayal, from feeling perpetually unseen. But rather than destroying you, it presses you into a deeper dimension of self. The psyche, like the earth, breaks open in earthquakes, and through the fissure something luminous leaks out. You do not merely survive your wound, you become the wound, and in becoming it, you discover that your very fracture makes you whole in another register. This paradox is intolerable to the rational mind, but is the very essence of individuation. The rare person does not ask, how can I be like others? But how can I be whole even if I am unlike anyone else? Consider also the dreams that visit you. Dreams are not idle fictions. They are the living speech of the unconscious. If your personality is rare, you will find that your dreams are not banal repetitions of daily residues, but potent revelations, archetypal dramas. You may dream of journeys through labyrinths, of conversing with the dead, of climbing mountains that dissolve into stars. These are not merely strange images, they are communications from the deepest strata of your psyche. In them, the collective unconscious is whispering, showing you images meant to guide your unfolding. Many dismiss dreams as nonsense, However, that they are the soul's nocturnal scripture. There is yet another mark upon you, an almost unbearable sensitivity to the suffering of others. It is not sentimentality, but an authentic resonance with the psychic field in which we are all entangled. You may walk into a room and feel the hidden grief that no one has spoken. You may sit beside a stranger and sense the battle raging in their heart. This sensitivity can feel like a curse, for it exposes you to storms, not your own. But it is also the sign of your kinship with the archetype of the empath or the mystic. You are not bound by your own individuality. You are porous, open, and in that openness you suffer, but also connect to the larger soul of humanity. But let me warn you, such a gift is dangerous. Without boundaries, you may drown in others' darkness. Without discernment, you may mistake possession for compassion. The rare personality must cultivate the strength to bear what it perceives without being consumed by it. Otherwise, what was meant to heal becomes the very poison that weakens you. This is why the old myths speak of initiation, of the hero who descends and returns, not merely with scars, but with wisdom. The gift is always entwined with peril. You may also feel estranged from the rhythms of society, the goals others chase, status, wealth, approval, feel hollow to you. You cannot force yourself into their mold without a deep sense of betrayal. Your ambition is not for accumulation, but for meaning, for coherence between your inner truth and your outer life. This makes you appear impractical, sometimes irresponsible in the eyes of the collective, but in truth, it is a deeper responsibility that drives you, the responsibility to be authentic, to live not as a mask but as a soul. Masks, however, are inevitable. We all wear the persona, the social face, but for the rare personality, the mask cracks under the pressure of the inner world. You may perform the role society expects, but behind your eyes a flame burns, and when you are alone, you feel its heat. You know you cannot fully become the persona, for it would be to amputate your essence, and so you live in tension between the face you must show and the self you cannot deny. This tension is the birthplace of creativity, for it forces you to invent symbols, art, and language that can carry what the persona cannot. This creative compulsion is yet another sign, whether you paint, write, compose, or simply imagine, you cannot contain the psychic energy that surges through you. Creativity is not optional, it is survival. The unconscious, when not given form, become destructive. But when you shape it into art, into expression, it becomes healing. The rare personality often leaves behind not just traces of life, but works that speak to generations beyond them. They may not be recognized in their time, but their creations resonate because they spring from the depths rather than the surface. Yet all of this, the symbolic perception, the intimacy with shadow, the wound, the sensitivity, the creativity leads to a fundamental solitude, not loneliness in the ordinary sense, though that is often present, but the solitude of the soul that cannot dilute itself. You may find companions, but rarely mirrors. You may be admired, but seldom understood. This solitude, if accepted, becomes the furnace in which your individuality is forged. If resisted, it becomes despair. The choice is yours, to suffer solitude as exile or to embrace it as initiation. And so, I tell you, the rarity of your personality is not an accident, nor a curse, though it may often feel like both. It is a vocation. The world does not need conformity. It needs precisely those who embody difference, who bear the burden of depth, who remind humanity that beneath the noise of daily life flows a river of meaning. You may never be numerous, but you are necessary. If you have recognized yourself in these descriptions, then you must also recognize the burden that follows. For the rare personality does not live in comfort, but in tension. And tension is the crucible of individuation. You will feel the opposing pulls of opposites, the demand for belonging and the call of solitude, the pressure to obey, the collective, and the urge to follow your own daemon, the longing to love and be loved, and the equal longing to remain untouched in the sanctity of your soul. Such contradictions cannot be resolved by choosing one over the other. They can only be endured, held, until a third way emerges, a way that is not a compromise but a transformation. The alchemists spoke of the conjunctio oppositorum, the union of opposites, and it is precisely here that the rare personality lives on the edge of contradiction, waiting for the new symbol that will reconcile what seems irreconcilable. This is why your life often feels like a mystery unfolding. Others may live by plans, clear paths, measurable goals. You, however, find that your path reveals itself only step by step, often through signs, synchronicities, inner urgings that cannot be justified by reason. You may be walking in despair, and suddenly a dream arrives with such clarity that you know it carries instruction for your next step. You may wrestle with confusion, and then a chance encounter brings a word that pierces straight to your need. Life for you is not random. It is woven with threads from a deeper loom. And while others scoff at coincidence, you sense in synchronicity the presence of a pattern that transcends the human will. Rare souls often discover that their destiny is guided less by their own choosing and more by the archetypal drama that has claimed them. This is why it is dangerous for you to imitate the goals of the collective. What nourishes others may poison you. What satisfies them may leave you barren. You must pay attention not to what the world tells you is valuable, but to what your dreams, your symptoms, your intuitions insist upon. If you ignore them, you will fall into neurosis. For the soul will not be denied. Symptoms are the cries of the psyche, demanding attention, and they will torment you until you consent to the path meant for you. The rare personality knows this truth in their bones. Wholeness matters more than happiness. Happiness is a fleeting state, dependent on circumstances. Wholeness is the alignment of conscious and unconscious, of light and shadow, of ego and self. To pursue happiness while betraying wholeness is to live a half-life. To pursue wholeness, even at the cost of happiness, is to live authentically. This is why your choices often bewilder others. You may leave a secure position to follow a whisper that calls you into uncertainty. You may refuse relationships that promise comfort because they do not resonate with your inner truth. You may endure seasons of darkness because you sense that only by passing through them will you emerge reborn. I tell you, the world needs your wholeness more than your happiness. A society built only on the pursuit of comfort collapses into emptiness, but a society shaped by those who have faced their depths gains roots that cannot be torn away by storm. You, rare soul, are among those who carry these roots. You are a reminder that existence is not shallow but unfathomable, not mechanical but mysterious, not meaningless but sacred. It is important, however, that you do not confuse rarity with superiority. The rare personality is not more valuable than others, only differently tasked. The danger is great that, feeling misunderstood, you fall into arrogance, that you believe your isolation makes you chosen in a way that separates you from humanity. This is not the truth. The truth is that your gift exists for the sake of the whole. You are a vessel through which the collective unconscious seeks to bring new images, new truths, new paths into existence. To inflate yourself as if you created this gift would be hubris. To deny the gift would be cowardice. You must hold the paradox. You are both nothing and everything, both an individual and a mouthpiece of the eternal. Dreams will remind you of this paradox. They will show you not only your greatness, but also your smallness, not only your potential, but also your fragility. A dream may lift you into the sky like a bird, only to drop you into the ocean depths. Another may crown you with symbols of kingship, only to strip them away in the next image. The psyche does not flatter, it reveals. And if you are faithful to the images, you will learn humility and courage together. Often, you will find yourself at odds with time itself. You may live with visions of the future that others cannot yet see. You may feel truths emerging in your psyche that only decades later the collective begins to acknowledge. This temporal dislocation is painful, for it means you are perpetually out of step with the world. But it is also essential, for someone must stand at the edge of time, perceiving the dawn before the rest have awakened. It is not your task to convince them, but to remain faithful to what you see, even if recognition never comes. This brings me to a further depth. The rare personality must cultivate endurance. You will be misunderstood, perhaps ridiculed, perhaps even persecuted. The history of humanity shows that those who bring new symbols are rarely welcomed. Think of prophets, Buddhas, mystics, all carried the mark of solitude. All were accused of madness. All suffered. But suffering, when embraced consciously, becomes initiation. It scours away illusions, purifies motives, and strengthens the vessel so it can hold the fire without shattering. Do not flee suffering, but neither glorify it. Simply endure it with the knowledge that it is part of the shaping of your soul. In this endurance, you will encounter what I call the self, not the ego, not the conscious I, but the totality of the psyche, the center that transcends and yet includes you. The self reveals itself through symbols of wholeness, mandalas, circles, divine figures, unifying patterns. When you glimpse these, you are not seeing fantasies, but hints of the inner order that guides you. To live in alignment with the self is the ultimate task of individuation. For the rare personality, this alignment is not optional, it is imperative. Without it, you will disintegrate under the weight of the archetypes. With it, you become a channel through which the eternal enters the temporal. Let me give you an image. Imagine your life as a vessel being shaped on the potter's wheel of the unconscious. The clay resists, collapses, reforms, but the hands shaping it are wiser than the clay itself. You may feel cracked, misshapen, unfinished, but if you yield to the process, the vessel becomes capable of holding water, of carrying spirit. This is what your rarity is, for not to display, but to contain, not to dazzle, but to bear something essential for the world. Yet, you may ask, how shall I live among others when my path is so different? I say, live with compassion. Though you are rare, you are not separate. The collective needs you just as you need the collective. Without their grounding, you would drift into the clouds of imagination. Without your vision, they would sink into materialism. The rare and the common are not enemies. They are complements. Do not despise those who cannot see what you see. Instead, offer them what you can. In symbols they may understand, even if they reject it. The seed has been planted. You will also discover that your relationships are not ordinary. You cannot love superficially, nor can you sustain bonds built on convenience. For you, relationship is a crucible in which the unconscious of two souls meet and transform one another. This is why love for you is both ecstatic and terrifying. It reveals not only the beloved's beauty, but also your own shadow. To love truly is to confront yourself, and few can endure such intensity. You may therefore experience heartbreak more deeply than others. But it is in these heartbreaks that your heart expands beyond its former limits. Remember always, to be rare is not to escape human weakness, but to engage it consciously. You will still feel fear, jealousy, anger, despair. The difference is that you do not deny these emotions. You trace them to their archetypal roots. You see in jealousy the shadow of the neglected child, in anger the warrior archetype demanding justice, in despair the call to surrender to a greater wisdom. By interpreting rather than repressing, you transform what could destroy you into forces that serve you. And finally, there is in the rare personality a longing for the transcendent. Ordinary life, however rich, cannot fully satisfy you. You seek not merely pleasure, but meaning, not merely survival, but communion with the numinous. You may find this in religion, in mysticism, in art, in nature, but however it comes, it is essential. Without contact with the transcendent, you will wither. With it, you will flourish even in the desert of misunderstanding. This longing is not escapism. It is the deepest truth of your being, for the soul itself is rooted in mystery. There is a further sign, and it is perhaps the most mysterious of all, the sense that your life is not entirely your own. You feel, at times, as though you are being lifted by something greater, as though invisible currents guide your steps even when your conscience will resist. You may have experienced sudden changes of direction, inner callings that tear you away from the familiar, and though you protest, you eventually discover that these detours brought you to precisely the place your soul required. This feeling of being lived is not delusion. It is the presence of the self, the deeper totality that orchestrates your individuation. The ego may imagine it is the master, but the rare personality learns, often painfully, that the ego is a servant to something vaster. This realization is both terrifying and liberating. It is terrifying because it strips away the illusion of control, leaving you exposed to the vast forces of the unconscious. It is liberating because it means you are not confined to the narrow walls of your own willpower. You are connected to a river that has flowed since the dawn of humanity, carrying the wisdom of countless generations, the images of gods and heroes, the raw material of myth itself. To align with this river is to feel your smallness and your greatness simultaneously, to realize that your life participates in something eternal. The rare personality often encounters visions. These may arise in dreams, in meditations, in sudden moments of clarity. They are not mere fantasies, but numinous experiences that alter the very texture of your being. You may see an image of light descending into darkness, of a serpent devouring its tail, of a child born radiant in the midst of ruin. Such visions are revelations, symbols sent by the unconscious to orient your soul. They are not to be dismissed lightly. They demand interpretation, contemplation, and sometimes action. To ignore them is to cut yourself off from the guiding hand of the self. Visions often frighten those who experience them, for they seem irrational, even insane. But insanity is not the vision itself. Insanity is to be possessed by the vision without understanding it. The rare personality must learn the art of symbolic interpretation to recognize that a serpent is not merely a serpent, nor a death merely a death. They are messages clothed in imagery, pointing to transformations in the psyche. The ancients lived close to these truths. They built myths and rituals around them. We, in the modern world, dismiss them as hallucinations. Yet it is precisely this dismissal that leaves our souls impoverished. You who feel their power must carry the burden of remembering what the collective has forgotten. And so you may feel as though you are living two lives. The outer life, in which you play roles, meet obligations, speak the language of the collective, and the inner life, where symbols, dreams, and archetypes reveal a reality more compelling than the visible. This dual existence is not hypocrisy, but necessity. The task is to create a bridge between the two, so that your inner revelations inform your outer life and your outer actions embody your inner truth. Without this bridge, you will feel split, torn, unable to belong fully either to the world or to yourself. With this bridge, you become a vessel of integration, a living mandala in which heaven and earth touch. This bridging, however, requires sacrifice. You must sacrifice the comfort of conformity, the ease of being understood, the security of walking roads already paved. You must enter the wilderness, both inner and outer, trusting that what guides you is sufficient. Think of Moses leaving Egypt, of the Buddha leaving his palace, of Christ entering the desert. These are not tales of ancient heroes only. They are archetypal patterns etched into your own soul. You too must leave what is familiar in order to find what is eternal. There will be nights when you despair, when the burden of your difference feels unbearable. You will long for simplicity, for the ease of being like everyone else. This longing is natural. Do not despise it, but also do not surrender to it. For if you betray your path, the unconscious will not remain silent. It will send dreams that torment, symptoms that afflict, emptiness that corrodes. The only true peace you will know is in fidelity to the self. However difficult that fidelity may be, and yet, in the very midst of the struggle, you will discover moments of profound joy, not the fleeting joy of pleasures, but the radiant joy of alignment, when you sense that your soul and the cosmos are in harmony, when every breath feels like a hymn, when every step resounds as if upon sacred ground. These moments are rare, but they are enough to sustain you through the deserts. They are reminders of why you endure, why you choose the narrow path. They are glimpses of the wholeness toward which your life is oriented. The rare personality also encounters the problem of power, not worldly power in the ordinary sense, but psychic power, the influence that comes when one is aligned with archetypal forces. Others may feel drawn to you, not because of anything you consciously do, but because they sense in you a depth, a mystery, a connection to something beyond the ordinary. This can be both a gift and a danger. The gift is that you can inspire, heal, awaken. The danger is that you may fall into inflation, imagining that the power is yours, rather than the archetypes moving through you. If you inflate, the unconscious will humble you, sometimes cruelly. Therefore, always remember, you are not the source, but the channel. Guard your humility as fiercely as your vision. It is also inevitable that you will attract projections. Others will see in you what they cannot face in themselves. Some will project their light, seeing you as a savior, a guru, an embodiment of their highest hopes. Others will project their shadow, accusing you of darkness, manipulation, or madness, neither projection is truly about you. Though both will affect you, your task is to receive these projections without becoming possessed by them, to remain faithful to your own center, even as others misunderstand. This requires immense strength, for it is tempting to believe the flattering projections and equally tempting to despair under the hostile ones. But if you remain anchored in the self, you will withstand both. Do not be surprised if your presence disturbs others. The rare personality often acts as a mirror, revealing truths people would rather avoid. Simply by existing authentically, you expose the falsity of masks, the emptiness of shallow pursuits, the poverty of a life lived only on the surface. This can provoke resistance, even hatred. Yet it is not your task to be liked, but to be true. You cannot control how others respond to your presence, only how faithfully you embody your own. In all of this, solitude will remain your companion, but solitude, when embraced, is not loneliness. It is the silence in which the soul can hear itself, the stillness in which symbols can rise. Cultivate your solitude. Do not fear it. For in solitude, if you come into contact with the eternal within you, the crowd cannot give you this. Only silence can, only the wilderness of your own being can. But I say again, do not mistake your rarity as separation from humanity. You are not above them, you are among them, carrying a different task. Your suffering is not only for yourself, but for the sake of the whole. In plumbing your own depths, you open a path for others. In facing your own shadow, you make it possible for them to face theirs. In bearing the loneliness of authenticity, you create space where authenticity can exist in the world. So when you ask whether you have an extremely rare personality, know that the question itself is less important than the responsibility it implies. To be rare is not to be special in the trivial sense, but to be chosen by the unconscious for a work that few can bear. If you recognize the signs within yourself, then the question becomes not, am I rare, but will I be faithful to what my rarity demands? And if you are faithful, then slowly, over the years, you will begin to sense that the opposites within you are not enemies but partners. You will see that your wound is also your gift, your shadow, also your guide, your solitude, also your initiation. You will realize that the very things that set you apart are the very things that unite you with the eternal drama of the human soul. You are not an accident, nor an anomaly, but a necessary expression of the self in this moment of history. The final dimension I must speak of is the destiny that arises when all these signs converge. For to have a rare personality is not simply to suffer its burdens in silence, nor to admire its uniqueness as though it were a jewel to display. It is to realize that your very existence serves a pattern larger than your comprehension. This realization humbles you, even as it ennobles you. You are rare, not to be exceptional in comparison, but to be indispensable to the unfolding of wholeness itself. In your journey, you will feel the pull of opposites until the very end. The temptation to withdraw entirely from the world, to dwell only in inner visions, will confront you. Equally strong will be the temptation to abandon your depths and chase the shallow comforts of conformity. Neither extreme will satisfy. The task is not escape, but integration. The rare soul is called to live with both feet in two realms, one in the world of forms, one in the world of archetypes, to bring the unseen into the seen, the eternal into the temporal. That is your work, and if you should doubt yourself, as surely you will, remember that doubt itself is part of the path. Faith without doubt is not faith but blindness. Your doubt, your questioning, your agonizing uncertainties are the very proof that you are awake. The collective drowns itself in certainties, in slogans, in rigid beliefs that leave no room for mystery. You, however, must hold the tension of not knowing, must endure the fire of ambiguity, for it is in this fire that new symbols are born, and those symbols will become torches for others wandering in darkness. Do not expect the world to thank you. Rarely will it understand, but do not resent the world either. It is precisely because the collective cannot see that you must see, because it cannot feel that you must feel, because it cannot imagine that you must imagine. You are the balance to its blindness. Without the rare, the collective stagnates. Without the collective, the rare would wither in isolation. Together, though often in conflict, they sustain the living drama of the human soul. You may notice as you age that your path becomes less about seeking and more about embodying. In youth, the rare personality is restless, haunted by visions, tormented by difference. In maturity, the restlessness becomes a quiet authority. The visions mature into wisdom, the torment ripens into compassion. You realize that the very wound that isolated you has made you a healer. The very shadows you wrestled with have taught you to guide others through theirs. In your own individuation, you become a living symbol, not because you sought it, but because your life has shaped itself into one. This is the great secret. Individuation is not for you alone. It is for the world. The gold of the alchemists, the philosopher's stone, was never meant to be hoarded. It was meant to heal the wasteland. And so too with you, if you have borne the loneliness, the visions, the darkness, and the fire, it is so that you may carry light into places others cannot reach. You do not need to preach, you do not need to command. Your very presence becomes the message. Your authenticity, your alignment, your wholeness speaks louder than any words. There is beauty in this vocation, but also gravity. You must never forget that to carry the archetypal is to carry fire, fire illuminatis, warms and creates, but fire also burns, consumes, and destroys. Handle it without reverence, and it will turn against you. Handle it with humility, and it will serve you. The rare personality must always remember, the fire is not yours. It is entrusted to you for a time, and when your time ends, the fire will return to the eternal hearth from which it came. When I look into the future of humanity, I see that the survival of our civilization depends not on technology alone, nor on politics, nor on progress as the world defines it, but on the renewal of symbols, for without symbols, humanity loses its soul, and it is the rare personalities who bring forth new symbols, who dream the dreams that awaken the collective, who embody possibilities that others cannot yet imagine. This is why you feel burdened, why you feel estranged, because the future is pressing itself into you before the present is ready. If you accept this, then you will discover that your loneliness was never meaningless, that your suffering was never wasted, that your difference was never an accident. You will see that you were chosen not in the sense of favoritism, but in the sense of necessity. The self required a vessel, and you were capable of being that vessel. All that you endured was shaping you for this. All that you feared was preparing you to bear what others cannot. And so, I leave you with this. Do not flee from your rarity. Do not resent it. Do not inflate it. Embrace it as your vocation. Walk faithfully, endure humbly, create courageously, and above all, remain true to the images that rise from your depths. For in those images lies not only your destiny, but the healing of the world. When the night feels endless, remember the dream that once illuminated your path. When the shadow grows overwhelming, remember that light is born only through contrast. When the solitude weighs heavy, remember that you are accompanied by the eternal within you. And when doubt whispers that you are lost, remember that being lost is often the surest sign that you are on the way to something greater than yourself. For you are rare, not as a curiosity, but as a necessity. You are the crack through which the eternal enters time, the bridge between worlds, the living symbol of wholeness in an age of fragmentation. Honor this, and your life, however misunderstood, will not have been lived in vain.